You're listening to the Flashbang Gaming Podcast. This is FGP.
Hello and welcome to the 7th installment of the Flashbang Gaming Podcast. I am Edward McDougall. I'm joined here once again by my co-host Joe. Say hi.
Hello.
And we are joined by another guest from the How About You podcast. It's Greg, everyone.
Hey everybody, what's going on?
Can I say what is going on here? We've had two guests in the last two episodes. First, there was Jordan, and now Greg.
Well, we're getting Hollywood now.
It's like,
you know, I mean, you guys are such a big time. Like people are like fighting over each other just to be on your show. You know.
big time with not even 20 subscribers.
Actually, just a little thing to put out there. I mean, Greg was actually meant to be on our last podcast, but obviously because you have ridiculous working shifts, I just don't know what to say. We literally have to get up at 3 a.m. in the morning just to do this podcast, and actually no, I am not doing that at all.
I appreciate you guys working around it because it is madness. Yeah.
So
I don't do that well at 10 p.m., let alone 3 a.m. Jesus.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on, Greg. Glad we can actually work something out, and glad you're not actually working for one.
So have we all had a good week? Has it been good for everyone? Has everyone had a good time this week so far?
I had a fairly decent week. Not really been that much interesting, but
I went to see Blink-182 last night, which was fun. That really made my week and probably my year. So that was like the only thing I had on my calendar this year, and it's gone, and I don't know what I'm doing for the rest of the year.
There's nothing else to look forward to. Like you peaked in July.
I've already peaked. There's still 6 months left.
It's the highlight of the year, everybody.
Like, I was meant to be going to CoxCon this weekend, and hotels were entirely booked out, so I couldn't even get a ticket for that. So I'm like, oh, okay. There's literally nothing on for me anymore.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we're already getting a bit sidetracked, aren't we? Let's get back into what we're meant to be discussing. As you know, just like last week, we're not going to do low IQ gamers or our stupid gaming review for whatever game possible. We're just going to keep to our normal discussion. Also, we're also going to get into round table as well a bit later on. But Greg, obviously you're on the podcast this episode. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Well, sure. So I'm one of the founding members of the Have At You podcast and the Drop Rate, which is our YouTube channel. And we all kind of come from different corners. And my corner is I worked for about 11 years, I worked at GameStop, which is like, you know, game in the UK. Yeah, no, I worked there oh yeah. And then for the last 6 years though, I've been running my own game store. So I basically left there because I loved what I was doing, just not who I was doing it for. And I thought, you know what, I can do this better. I can make money, and then when I work harder, I make the money. And so I left and opened up my own store.
You know, people say that Dark Souls players are masochists. I mean, people who work at GameStop are pretty far up there too. So.
Well, I'll tell you back in the day, and we could probably do a whole podcast just on my GameStop stories. But like back in the day, GameStop was I actually started working at Software Etc. before it was GameStop, and it was actually really cool, man. It was, you know, you got free games from people, and like, you know, you worked in a game store, you worked normal hours, and then once the profit started shrinking, man, they just started abusing their employees, and it was brutal, and it got really bad.
That's awful. That's terrible. You can't do that, man. Yeah. Come on.
But you know, I have a real issue with regrets, man, because I'll tell you, if you like where you're at, you can't regret anything that's happened because it all brought you right here. You know, and so I'm glad that they did that so that I could branch out on my own, find my corner.
So you're what you basically say is that you're actually praising the company for actually abusing your own staff.
Yeah, you know,
just to get to this point.
That's correct. Yes.
Oh God.
Okay, very very weird, whatever you want to call it, but
that's one hell of an origin story.
Can you tell me a little bit more about your gaming store? What's it actually called?
Sure. So my store is called Game Trade. Kept it nice and simple. And
Game Trade.
That's a good name. I like that.
We mostly just do used stuff. We sometimes get some new releases, but I mean, if you guys know much about how this stuff works, I mean, there's very little money in new games when they come out, so don't really deal in that low profit margin stuff. But we mostly do used. We don't do any movies or music or anything like that. Like, we straight up just do games. Like, when I opened it, my vision was to open a game store that was everything I always wanted to have in a game store, but I never found. Like, every time
So you sell used games. You do consoles as well?
Yes, yeah. So games, consoles, pretty much everything gaming related. We try to do a little bit of memorabilia type stuff. So sometimes we'll get some Funko Pops for video games, sometimes some figures, toys and stuff. But for the most part, just games and consoles and accessories, yeah.
How far back do you go with games? Do you like taking all of the classic stuff to resale, or
yeah?
Like,
oh yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, we do it all, man. We go all the way back to Atari 2600, and we've got some of the old.
Wow.
Yeah, we got some of the, like, Commodore 64 stuff, old Vic 20. Yeah, we're killing it with that old stuff.
Oh my god,
This is like your dream store, Edward, isn't it?
dude. Yeah. Like, we kind of have an equivalent of that in this country. It's called the Entertainment Exchange, or CEX for short.
Yeah, I went to one. I went to one when I was there. Yeah,
it does remind me of that quite a bit.
Dude, recently in the one local to me, they had a Dreamcast in there and original PlayStations, N64s. They had Ocarina of Time in box. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh man, I just gotta tell you, like, I have that stuff every day. Like, every day I get stuff like that. And like yesterday, I put out like 30 or 40 Super Nintendo games. We had like Chrono Trigger, Secret of Mana. I mean, like, everything good. It was just awesome.
Now, you see, all the Super Nintendo games that get sent in, they're all trash. They had like 6 different copies of WWF WrestleMania, and it's like, that game's awful.
Yeah, it's tough with Super Nintendo right now, because as it becomes more popular, it's like more people are buying it, less people are selling it. So, and as the price goes up, all the common stuff is crap, and all the rare, quote unquote rare stuff is just stuff that people like that was good. So there's a very thick line of like, here's stuff people will buy and here's stuff people will never buy.
Well, there's been quite a resurgence in people buying classic stuff, because, like, I'll take an example from the music world. Last year, vinyl pretty much outsold compact discs.
Yeah.
So there's been a real resurgence in people wanting to buy older style equipment and video games and stuff like that, which I find really cool. I mean, if I had the money, I'd definitely invest in some of that.
Well, and my timing was pretty good, because I opened my store, it's 6.5 years ago now, and at that time it was becoming popular, but it wasn't where it is now. So I was able to have a couple years before the big boom took off, so that I could build a good inventory. Because like, there's some newer, like newer stores are popping up now, and what they do is like, they're always struggling to keep inventory in because people are buying it faster than they can get it in. And me, I've just had a couple years worth of just stuff collected, so now I have just like this mammoth collection all the time.
Okay, but let me ask you this. So you went up to set up this gaming store. What was the exact reason why you wanted to set up your own store in the first place?
Well, my dad had his own business, so growing up, I saw him do his own business, and he enjoyed a certain level of freedom that I liked, I think, and he was very hard on himself as a boss, and I always was that way too. And I thought, I'm sick of working hard for some corporation to make extra money, and so I always kind of felt in my head I would one day do it. And, sometimes fate and like timing, everything's kind of perfect. And, I was in line for a promotion at GameStop. And then I'll be totally honest with you guys, I was on a conference call with my boss and a bunch of managers, and he said something that was really stupid. And I called him out on it in front of everybody. And I lost it. Like, I don't know. I lost my cool that day for some reason. I don't know why. And I just let him have it. Like, I just blitzed him on this call in front of all the other managers. And so I almost got fired. But instead of firing me, they just demoted me, pulled me out of the program to be promoted and all this other stuff. And so I was looking at that going, man, now I can never get promoted. So why stay here? And then a couple months later, I just took the plunge and was really lucky. Had my grandmother, she had a little bit of money in the bank, and she was like, she gave me almost every penny she had to start it, and
wow.
And it was, she's amazing. We lost her a couple years ago, but she's amazing. And she was just great. Like, and she was the type of person that even if it failed, she'd have been like, you know what, you tried, good job. She never, it was great. And so there's a lot that's luck, like a lot of fate and a lot of perfect scenario and a lot of this, and then boom, it just kind of happened.
That's awesome. Now, I have a question. This is obviously the most relevant question. What kind of video games are you into?
Oh man, you know what I'm into? I'm into good games. Like that's first and foremost.
Dude, same.
Like,
yeah.
Well,
dude, same.
I think all of us here are into good games.
But you'd be surprised. But like, so at my core, I'm a PC and a PS4 gamer. Like I prefer to play things on console, especially indies and stuff. But PC will always be my home for like Twitch shooters and competitive multiplayer games, because it's just like for first person shooters, like I have to play on a PC. I can't use a controller. I was forged in the fires of like CS 1.5 and like just old like
CS
yeah
1.5.
original OG Unreal Tournament and Quake 3, like these
Quake 3 is so good.
we used to do Quake 2 I should say, because we used to do like mod swaps, like model swaps, and so you can, instead of the Quake guys, you'd have like Optimus Prime and stuff. It was like we just do all kinds of crazy stuff for that back in the day. But
that's awesome.
So I would say, like, if I had to choose one, I'd always choose my PC, because there's more variety, plus it does other stuff. But what I probably put my most time into is probably my PS4.
I tell you what, you just describe exactly what I am, sort of.
Same here. Except I can't run as many things on my PC as you two probably can.
And I don't even play. Well, actually, I'm starting to get a little bit more into first-person shooters on PC, but I'm still mostly on PS4, because that's where most of the people I know are still on.
Well, it's funny. I wanted to mention this because I listened to the podcast you guys did with Jordan. It was awesome, and you guys kind of brought up something about. It was great, and that's why I like when he started talking to you guys. I was like,
at least someone likes it.
Dude, it was great. Like
we don't get that very often.
No,
our comment section just filled with spam comments like, "Yo, great video. Donate to charities in Ghana, please."
What was the last comment? It was like, this guy's like, "Oh yeah, I really like your podcast, but so please, if you want to use my music thing, check out my website."
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of those.
It's beautiful.
But so I was listening to that, and you guys had made a comment about, why PC gaming is kind of so relevant, and it's an interesting story, because like way back in the day, like the Nintendo was popular but didn't take off. Like in the UK and like in Europe, it was like almost better. Like people had the computer hybrids, so like PC gaming just was way bigger, I think, in Europe than it was, and the consoles kind of took off here.
Like Nintendo didn't really take off here either, because most of the European and Asian, well, not really Asian markets, but European markets were dominated by Sega as well as PC.
Yeah, the Master System crushed it over there. Yeah,
and the Mega Drive or Genesis.
Yeah.
But recently for me, it's all been about the fighting games. There's been a lot of good fighting games coming out recently, so it's really revitalized my love for fighting games.
Nice.
And also,
for me, it's a little bit more on the classic first-person shooters, arcade sort of thing.
Yeah, as we said last week, we started playing through the original Serious Sam's. And
Serious Sam,
yeah.
I've been playing multiplayer actually.
I love Serious Sam. It's so good.
Are you a Tekken fan?
Yes, Tekken's my favorite fighting franchise.
Mine too, man.
It's
Mine
the
too.
biggest Tekken fan.
So if you get a chance, you have to watch one of our videos on our channel. Because in our podcast, one of the guys who hosts it, Trent, he was talking mad garbage about being a Tekken player, and I play like tournament level Tekken. So I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna beat you," and he's like, "I don't know, dude, I'm pretty good." And I'm like, just listen. Like, there's only two games I brag about being really good at, and it's Tekken and it's WWF No Mercy. And those are the only two games that I will brag about being really good.
Oh my God, No Mercy, so good.
So we played it on one of our episodes of Versus. Our guy Todd put together, and I just beat his ass, man. It was brutal. He was crying like halfway through the first round. It was awesome. It was just awesome.
No, that's like me. I can only brag about being good at two games. It's like Tekken and the Tony Hawk's games. But for a point in time, that's all I did. I used to come home, put my bag down, just turn on my PlayStation 2, and it was just Tekken 4 and Tony Hawk's until I just passed out.
Yep.
Well, for me, it was more back in the day when I had my PlayStation 2. It was more for Tony Hawk, and then mostly when the PlayStation 3 came out, it was more Skate 3.
Well, so going back to the,
I got into Skate really late because.
Because you just came around my house once and said, "Yo, have you got Skate 3?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Well, I'm gonna be honest. I'm a Tony Hawk purist, so the stick controls for Skate, I was like, "This is inaccurate. This is awful. Give me my button control back, EA." And then I realized it's not a skating game. It's just slapstick comedy, and it's fantastic.
No, I actually, to be honest with you, I do prefer the controls a little bit more than for Tony Hawk when you actually get used to it.
There's no precision in it. You just flick the stick. It's like, I hope I do a kickflip, instead of actually having an input to do it. It's ridiculous.
No, it generally feels better, but then again, obviously, you're more. I mean, one might even debate to a hardcore Tony Hawk fanboy.
Don't make me have a combo off with you. You'll be sent home packing, my boy.
Do you want to go, mate? Mate, after this, well, I'll load up Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3, yeah? Foundry. We'll go one-on-one.
Oh, man.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Just make sure you record it. Just make sure you record it for us.
I'll bloody record that thing, right?
Do you even have that on your PC anymore? Because I do.
No, but I can just go on the Pirate Bay quickly.
Jesus Christ. I don't condone piracy, by the way. Don't sue me.
But getting back originally to that question, too, like, when you ask, like, what kind of gamer, like, what I also say, though, is now I've been doing this for so long. Like, I'm the oldest of my group of friends, and I'm pretty sure I'm more than twice as old as you guys, I hate to admit. But,
Probably.
Wow, what an old man.
But I'm always looking for, like, a new experience, you know? So like, I've been playing games for so long that, like, I like unique experiences. So, like, I'll play something like Her Story on Steam, which was just, like, mind-blowing. And then, like, Life is Strange I'm playing currently, or even something like Nier Automata, like, that's really good. I mean,
oh god, Nier is so good.
Just something different, you know. That's what I'm kind of
great.
seeking right now. Is I almost get a little stale with games, you know, and I have to find out the next new experience, you know.
I think the most recent game that gave me the new experience feel that I've played is probably Bloodborne on PS4. People say it's just a Dark Souls clone. It's made by From Software. It feels completely different. And that game creates an atmosphere that I've never felt before, because it's not a horror game, but I'm still on the edge of my seat like I'm playing like Resident Evil or something. Because it's the world that they create, it's full of such grotesque and disgusting monsters that also look radical. And it just creates this atmosphere of where you literally don't know what's around the next corner, where I find it in Dark Souls, which I love both of them equally, but Dark Souls I find to be a little bit more predictable in what's going to be around the corner, seeing as I've played all three of them. Sadly, I have played Dark Souls 2, and I don't want to talk about that experience.
Yeah,
but,
I'm not a Dark Souls 2 hater, actually. I definitely admit that it's the worst of the series. Like, but, you know, I've played through that game probably 4 or 5 times with different people, and even though they just added like a whole bunch of bosses that were all kind of generic, I kind of dug that. You know, I don't know why, but I actually really like 2. It's not better than 3 or 1 or even Demon Souls, of course, but it was serviceable, I guess. But I would agree about Bloodborne. Like what you're saying is it was different, and the dynamic was different about how you could get health back from striking an enemy after they strike you. So
it's my favorite game that From Software's ever done. It's my favorite out of all.
Nice.
I love it. I just prefer my games to be fast paced, you know, so that really fit my style well. And then Dark Souls 3 came out, and it was the Bloodborne team basically, because the Bloodborne team was the Dark Souls 1 team. So basically the original Dark Souls team came back and just implemented stuff from Bloodborne just to make like Dark Souls 3 like the ultimate game, and I love that game just as much as the original Dark Souls.
But it's not quite as good
I
as
was very
Bloodborne.
surprised at E3 that we didn't get a Bloodborne 2 announcement. I was really surprised. Like, I thought that was almost a given. I was really surprised.
Well, according to From Software, they want to work on something different. So, I honestly wouldn't be angry if we didn't get a Bloodborne 2, because I don't think it would make that much sense considering what you do at the end of the DLC. It wouldn't make that much sense. But I wouldn't be against
it's like
it either.
it's like you just want to play it, but it doesn't make sense. But you just want to play another one, because I liked what they tried to do with the Chalice dungeons. I thought it was just kind of not the best thought out idea, but it was like a good on paper idea. So
thing is, doing Chalice dungeons is fun, but they should have just made it you can just drop into any Chalice dungeon you want. I don't want to have to spend hours farming like materials just to enter a dungeon that I could finish in about half an hour.
Right. Well, and part of my issue too is that like I love to play those games co-op. And like it was not easy to get a friend into co-op with that, because you'd bring him in, you'd beat it, and then he'd have to pull you into his game to beat that level of the Chalice. You know, it's like he had to keep doing the bounce back and forth thing. And I would have rather just had you be able to go into a game and just kind of stay in there. I know it's not really fits their multiplayer style, you know, but sometimes their multiplayer just is abrasive to me. Like I just want to pull in a friend and jam, which obviously in 3 was as easy as it's ever been. But
That's my feel with Dark Souls 2, because playing through that game by myself, it's not that Dark Souls 2 mechanically is a bad game. It just feels so much different to the games that came before it and the games that came after it. It's like, it's not even like the dark horse of the series, because that would mean it's good. It's serviceable at best. So like, I can only play through that game like with friends. Otherwise, I just get bored out of my mind, because the levels don't intertwine with each other like in Dark Souls 1, Bloodborne, and 3. Like, there are shortcuts, but it doesn't like take you to like, wow, I can't believe this links to this place and this links to this place, because the Dark Souls 2 team was From Software's B team, so they did a lot of things differently, and some of it was alright, and then some of it was like, oh, that doesn't work in this kind of game, because they started putting in like Legend of Zelda-esque puzzles that you'd see in like a dungeon in the new Zelda. And it's just like, I don't want that in my Dark Souls. I want to be able to run through hack and slash, find shortcuts, and fight epic bosses. Epic bosses are very lacking in Dark Souls 2, because a lot of them are just recycled garbage.
Yeah, and I'll definitely, I totally agree with all that, actually. And there was something really special about the level design in Dark Souls 1, which is part of why that game is so amazing. Yeah. Like, when you eventually get like an elevator from like the very first like Citadel, and it just goes right back down to the bonfire. The Firelink Shrine. You're like, holy crap! Like this was designed intelligently. You know, I just really, I like that a lot. And that was definitely missing it too, because they did the teleport bonfire thing, which was fun for a convenience factor, but it took away from this awesome world that was built, you know.
And the amount of detail that they put into Dark Souls 1 is actually ridiculous. I don't know if you've seen this, but I think the channel's called Limit Breakers or something, or it's like Game Breakers or something. He managed to get the camera unlocked in Dark Souls 1, and he just panned off in all different directions from Firelink Shrine, and there's like entire towns that you can't visit, but they're there and they're fully rendered and detailed.
That's wild.
It's amazing. And another special thing about, I'll stay on Dark Souls just for this one last thing. Why are all the NPCs you meet in Dark Souls 2 complete dicks? Like, but you talk to them first, it's like, oh, they're being nice to me. It's like Dark Souls 1, and then they're like, yo, do you want to buy something? It's like, no, I don't have any souls. And they're like, piss off, man. Like, they're all horrible to you. Whereas in Dark Souls 1, you meet, like, the Onion Knight, and he's like, oh, I am in a pickle. Can you help me open this gate? I will be very happy if you help me open this gate. It's like, well, I want to give him a hug, like.
He's a good fella.
I don't understand Dark Souls 2. And I also don't understand why I have more hours in Dark Souls 2 on my PC than Dark Souls 1, and that really scares me.
You just complain, oh, Dark Souls 2 is not as good as the other ones. And
the only reason I have more hours in that one is because I've played through it twice with my friends, and we still haven't finished the DLC because we hate it.
Will you ever finish the DLC?
No, because it sucks.
I think you should, to be honest.
Dude, when you see me finishing that DLC, I must be really, really bored. Really bored.
How about you finish it tomorrow?
I don't know if I'm going to be bored tomorrow. I'll have to check my schedule.
Okay. Right, well, let me know, and then we can see what we'll do. Anyway, I think we should move on now. I hope you had like that nice conversation about Dark Souls, obviously.
I'm always down to talk about Dark Souls. I could do an entire Dark Souls podcast right now. I'd be so down.
Sign me up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Anyway, I think we should now move on to our only segment of the podcast this episode, and that is the roundtable.
Let's go! Come take a seat at the roundtable where we debate the biggest gaming topics. Only on Flashbang Gaming Podcast. Alright, welcome to the roundtable. What are we talking about this week, Joe?
Okay, so our first question of this episode: do you feel that now this is going to sound a bit bleak towards Greg, but do you feel that gaming stores in the future will go extinct due to the rise of digital sales? Now, I know a lot of other people have obviously raised this question up before, but I thought you, being the owner of a store, would share a bit of new light on this. What do you think? Put you on the spot.
No, that's great. So I don't think that, but it's interesting because it's not just digital sales that'll kill stores. It's also the big boxes. It's the Amazons, the Best Buys. Like the reselling's becoming, like it's online commerce. the e-commerce that's really also digging into the business. But I don't think that, actually. I think if you have a good store and you can figure out how to compete with those prices, you'll do just fine. And since thankfully those places are essentially who sets the price for us, like when we look to price something, we essentially look at what it sells for on eBay and we put it at that price. Because, that's how we research our products. We just kind of use that as a baseline for what people are willing to pay for something.
Must be a lot of research that goes into that.
That is the one tough part about what we do is everything that someone sells, you have to look it up. So if someone comes in with like a basket of 50 games, you have to look up every game, and so it can take some time. But we're good at it. You get fast at it.
BLB just got to look it up.
And you're like, let me check some prices real quick. But I don't think so because right now retro's big and it's coming back, and there's a lot of people that really don't like buying stuff online still, which is amazing to me because I'm somebody who buys lots of stuff online. I mean, if I have a problem, I return it and I take care of it. But a lot of people don't trust online sales still. And then they also, like, my business is kind of strange in the sense that it's not what we'd call resistant, or it's not recession resistant. It's or recession proof. We call it recession resistant, which basically means when times are tough, our businesses do okay still because like people need to sell stuff to get money, so they'll sell us their stuff, and then people want to save money, so when they want to save money, they'll buy you stuff. So it's kind of this interesting dynamic that'll always kind of exist, I think. And yeah, you've got stuff like Facebook groups for selling and Facebook Marketplace and all that sort of stuff, but don't trust those. And we still have tons of people coming in though, and we're our business is growing. We're growing, sometimes 15-25% every month over the last year.
That's really good. That's good.
That's actually pretty
we're
good
seeing
growth.
incredible growth. I mean, I started off as a one-man show, and now I've got 2 full-time employees and 1 part-time employee. And there are still some days where I think it's not enough.
Let me ask you this. Do you, I don't think you were very clear on this, but do you sell mostly used games, or do you sell also new games as well? Like, what's the percentage? Like, is it like, do you sell like 70% what you sell is used, or 30% is new?
I would say probably closer to like 95 to 99% is used, and then maybe 5, maybe
okay,
under
right,
5,
yeah, that's definitely my estimate.
I also don't think. My theory on this is if video game stores were to quote unquote die, then I think personally they would start just going into selling figurines, because I see it in game now. They obviously have all their games and stuff, and they're selling all the Steam money cards you can buy, and they're now selling like iTunes vouchers and Netflix vouchers and stuff like that. And they also sell like figurines, game merchandise, and t-shirts and caps and scarves, and like there's Street Fighter jackets all over the place, and there's like pop vinyls and stuff.
Yeah.
So if video game stores were to die in the sense that they had to stop selling video games because the demand for like buying on Steam is too much, then they could just resort to selling like the gift cards and the game merchandise and the figures and the stuff like that. So I don't think they're gonna die in the sense that lads, we got to shut up shop because Steam's murdered us to death.
Well, so a couple things about that. So first, I would say, because a lot of people do ask me that, like, hey, are you worried about like, store, like say PlayStation, the next PlayStation's an all digital console or something, right? Like they're like, well, what do you worry about that?
We are definitely starting to see that now with like obviously more in the case of PlayStation Now and streaming.
Right. And I could
say.
And in the sense with like the Steam boxes and stuff, because they're basically miniature PCs that you just put your Steam line in.
Right, exactly. And so you've got you've got people, I think, that are always going to. Part of the problem with digital is that I think Jordan touched on this last year, but our online high-speed internet infrastructure in this country is awful. So a lot of people don't even have. Here we go again. America's it's crazy,
internet.
man. And I could spend a whole podcast.
Look, Time Warner.
Oh God, I could spend eons on about that stuff.
Can I ask you this quickly? You've got internet at your store, right? Do you have a data cap on it?
No.
Because that's a thing in America, which I was completely blown away.
No, in fact, no, they're borderline offensive. But no, we're good actually. We have really good internet at the store. Like it's good enough where I could stream from the store if I wanted to. And I've actually thought about.
And you can look up stuff on eBay without refreshing.
Exactly.
On the day of recording, I've actually I've actually fixed my internet today. I don't know what I did, but I did something to my router, and I go and check my download speed, and it went from 14 megabytes to 50, and I was like, holy shit. So, it was like 50 down, 30 up or something, and like 9 ping, so I was like, oh, this is great.
Well, we can sit here all day and talk about the internet problem in America, but obviously, I think the big problem is the internet service providers.
Yeah. So
anyway, continue along
so
with
I'll bring it back on it. And so we have, like, say the next Sony console goes all digital, the PlayStation 5 in, say, 3 or 4 years when it comes out, say it's all digital. Okay, if that's the
that wouldn't surprise me.
It wouldn't. I don't think it will be. I think we have one more generation still of physical media. But say it is. I do too as a collector. But
I hope it's not one. I hope it's like 10.
But
I love having discs.
I know, me too.
Like that's one thing that I still do. I still buy CDs when I can for music.
No, because when you buy a physical copy, you actually feel like you actually own it.
Yeah.
Because I still don't feel like I own Skyrim, and I've had it for like 6 years.
Well, and so that's the thing is with something like Steam, which I love the service, but you're paying for the right to play that game. You're not paying for the game, and so at any time they could revoke that right for you to play that game at any time. And that's within the contract and the TOS that you agree to. And so that's a very scary proposition to me. But so say say next console generation, everything's digital. That still leaves me 45 years worth of vintage video games to sell in the store. So everything back to Atari. And what's really interesting now is I've got people coming in buying GameCube stuff because they're going, man, and this is really...
Oh, man likes his GameCube.
I love GameCube.
This shows how old I am because I would say a decently attractive young female will come in, of age, and she'll come in and she'll be like, oh man, my first gaming console was the GameCube. And I'm like, oh my God, like, just shows how old I am, compared to, but so you've got people though,
back in my day,
you've got people are nostalgic for newer stuff now. Like there's people that come in and go, oh man, I used to play PS2 with my dad. And I was like, okay, cool. So, I mean, PS2's now 17 years old, and,
love PS2.
That's crazy.
It really is, So now you've got, so say in 5 or 10 years,
as old as me. What the fuck?
and so say in another 5 years you'll have like people, because right now N64 up through PS1, N64 is kind of the hottest, like newest hot right now. But GameCube and PS2 will get hot, and then eventually people are going to come in and say, "Hey man, the PS3 was my first game console."
That's scary. Don't talk about that.
So,
oh no! What's even more scary? They walk into the store. My first gaming console was PS4.
Oh my gosh.
Dude, once that happens, I'll be like, right, it's time for me to start growing gray hair. Like,
it is funny though to watch that, and then but what we've also got too, right? So kids nowadays, and I don't even know what to age to put on this, but I know just from my nieces and nephews, like kids today watch YouTube like a lot of people my age watch TV. So they're watching these YouTubers play retro games, and these kids want to buy retro games. Like I've got 10, 15-year-old kids coming in and buying Lego Nintendos and like Super Nintendos. So there'll always be a market for that because one day they're going to be old and they're going to say, man, when I was a kid, I used to play Super Nintendo. Even though it wasn't out when they were a kid, it was old when they were a kid, they're going to want to buy it again. So there's this cycle of life that just kind of keeps going.
You make a point about how you're saying 10 to 15-year-olds to like go out and buy retro games. I'm not really seeing that in this country.
Interesting.
Yeah, but that's because Super Nintendo was never big in this country. Like, to be fair, gaming didn't really properly take off in this country until like it was PlayStation 1 and
PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 was definitely when it started.
Like when the Dreamcast dropped, UK gaming was like, we're here now. Hi.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, you guys got shafted on prices and availability for years. Like, there's a reason why it didn't do well there is because they weren't bringing every game, so you guys weren't getting the best software, and then everything was $10-$20 more expensive than it was here. I mean, those two things will kill any budding industry at all.
We didn't really get out that video game crash situation until at least 1997.
Wow, that's crazy, but
like it was around PS1, Sega Saturn. That's when it started. There were rumblings like, "Ooh, these things called video games. We can stop banging sticks and rocks together." Like,
but to be honest though, even though I would say console in terms of console gaming does not really kick off really until more the PS2. I think PC gamer is a bit of a different story in this country.
Well, yeah, because everyone was playing Doom on DOS, and they were like, "This is the only video game that exists." Like, and it's amazing.
They treat like bloody Doom on PC.
All
like
they did,
it's Pong.
all kids did all day was go to school, come home. Man, I want to play Sim City until I die. Like, and then suddenly we got a PS1, and it's like, what the fuck's a Crash Bandicoot? Like,
I think one of my favorite games on the PlayStation 1 was probably the I don't think, have you guys played this, the Red Alert
Oh,
Command.
Man. Oh yeah.
I have never heard of that.
Oh man, we used to.
You should check it out.
We used to, because if you had two PS1s and you had the link cable, you could play 2-player on 2 TVs. So we used to link
wow.
up. Yeah, we used to link up PS1s, and we'd run a cable under
God,
the
I
wall.
bet that.
Oh, it was awesome.
Bet that. Dude, I bet that looked like you were putting your PS1s on life support there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, it was bad. But that was a great game. But even at that time, I was still playing like StarCraft on PC. So like I would play that on console with my console friends, but man, StarCraft was still king on PC.
StarCraft never got over here until the second one came out.
Really?
I'm pretty sure.
Man, that's the saddest thing I've heard all year.
it wasn't really anything to StarCraft 2.
Wow, that's incredible.
Man, I have to say my slam jam for PS1 probably the original Tekken and probably, oh god, what was it called? Oh, it was this platformer. It was called Pandemonium. That game's awesome.
I was a big Twisted Metal guy. So like Car Combat, Twisted Metal 2, and then of course Kingsfield, like FromSoft's like original, games.
I've never played that, but I've seen it.
If you played Dark Souls in first person view, it's straight up the same game.
Well, that's terrifying.
Oh, dude, it's
terrifying.
Here we go again.
I have to say, a game that should get more attention from a PS1, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. That game is fantastic. We've actually used that like music from that game as like some of the early intros in the earliest episodes.
Thing is though, when we played we actually played the prologue. I think it was on the second episode. We played it for longer than it's actually. You listen to it in the game because it's just absolutely amazing.
The prologue song in that game.
Yeah, that's another thing as well. We need to have in these newer games is good soundtracks.
No, we're not gonna get that because they're like, "Yo, Flow Rider, drop a sick beat, fam," and it's like, "Oh, this soundtrack sucks."
Part of the problem with modern.
Dude, your name's Florida.
Part of the problem with modern gaming, though, too, is part of the reason people argue that it's not as good as older games is because clearly right now the majority of the budget has to go to making the game look good. That's the first thing they do. They have 800 animators, they have 800 models, modelers and designers, and those people,
very very
they make the game look good, and then they figure out how to make it play good second. Like there's 10 times as many artists as there are designers, and.
Well, you was actually telling me earlier about how you actually wanted to be a game designer.
Yes, sir, I did.
Yeah.
It was unfortunate.
That went down very well, didn't it?
Well, the worst part about it was actually a for-profit school. So I don't know if you guys have those over there, but it's basically a college here that is not like a government sort of run thing, or it's you literally they're a corporation that makes money off of students going to school there, and.
Oh yeah, we have an equivalent
to be honest
to
with you, no, they won't. Over in this country, they won't really say it's for profit, but really they actually are. But they just don't say.
Yeah, so we basically have the same thing. It's just the government's like, no, this is not for profit.
No, this is definitely not for profit. We're definitely not making money off it.
Except we're so lining our pockets.
Well, they take all the profits and they give it to the whoever the head of this chairman of the board is, and they give it all to him and say, see, we didn't make any money. He got like $1 million bonus, but we didn't make any money. But yeah, so I went there, and the school itself was a total joke, and it was really bad. The only instructor we had that ever worked in the industry, he had left the industry to work on small games, and he himself just wasn't that good, to be honest. And so, we
wonder why he quit.
Yeah, I mean, we basically were taught how to do game design by people who graduated from the program but had never done it because they couldn't find a job doing it. And so, it just.
Well, that's very, very
very depressing stuff, But some friends and I, we made a game. I always say this, like I joke, because that school cost me about $50,000, and 50 grand for a 2-year degree, which is just pathetic. And 2 years.
That's 20. That's 25 a year.
It was awful, and I'm still paying it off. Yeah, it's brutal over here, man, with those. But
oh yeah, imagine that. Oh yeah, I'm making some profit off this game.
You know,
pay off my debts.
You know, I'm not always happy being British, but when I hear about stuff like that overseas, I'm like, thank God I'm British and education.
Oh man, it's
still pretty terrible here.
I mean, but at least I'm going to school for free still.
Well, that's true, and I think you guys do pretty good with your healthcare too. We got an issue with that over here.
Yeah, free healthcare.
I mean, I don't know how much longer it's going to be free if politics keeps going the way it is, but I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about
let's not get into politics.
Otherwise, I will start crying.
That's another podcast for another day. We'll do the political podcast later.
We'll share some stuff on the Have At You podcast if you ever let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, it's funny that we were talking about Castlevania because Have At You podcast is a reference to Castlevania Symphony of the Night as well, because that's a line that Dracula says. He's like, Have at you, and then he fights Trevor in the beginning. Or Richter.
Doesn't he go like, isn't it like, foul beast,
yep,
have at you, or something like that? Yeah.
Anyway, should we get back on topic? Yeah. Let me say something quickly about the physical copies for games. I was watching a YouTuber called Review Tech USA. Absolutely.
My boy, Review Tech USA.
Yo,
he's fat.
And he was talking about, obviously, the Xbox One X, which I don't even like the name. I despise it. Do you despise that name, Xbox One X?
It's one of the worst marketing decisions since the Wii U. You know, like it's awful.
Okay.
And it's bad.
Tell me about it. I think I went on a rant on the second episode.
Yeah. Oh, and it's just like Nintendo. It's the same thing because people call us. You know, same with the Xbox One. People call and say, "Hey, do you have the Xbox?" I'm like, "Okay, well, you looking for the Xbox 360, or the Xbox One?" I don't know, like the first Xbox. Like, okay, we have the first one. They're $40. Really? For an Xbox? I'm like, yeah, for the first one. But
well, no,
to them, the first one's the 360. I'm like, oh my god, like. And then they're like, well, what's the Xbox One? I'm like, oh my god, like I don't want to have to explain this to you. Like the PlayStation, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. Numbers are easy.
Sony struck gold.
Yeah, I mean, they released a console called the Xbox One. Then they released a console called the Xbox One S, and now they released one for the Xbox One X.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, let me get back into my point about the Xbox One X.
I hope Microsoft give up with Xbox soon, because I think they're trying their best to drive it into the ground, but because there are so many Xbox purists, they just get hyped for it regardless.
But I was watching Review Tech USA, and he was talking about the Forza Motorsport 7 game, the 4K game that's going to be coming out. And he was talking... Yeah, 4K miles. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but yeah, what was really interesting was the fact is you're also going to be able to buy it on the store. And do you know how big the game is that you have to download?
I bet it's like 100 gigabytes.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I was going to say it's got to be up there, yeah.
In total, the full file.
That doesn't surprise me. You know Halo 5 Guardians, when I had my Xbox, it came out on a free weekend. So that shows how well Halo's doing right now.
But the thing is, though, you can buy a game...
Dude, that game came out on a free weekend. It was 75 gigabytes, and I was like, it's a free weekend, and you're expecting me to use 75 gigs of my hard drive to play it for not even 2 days.
They should extend that weekend just to allow 2 days to download it, and then obviously 2 days to actually play it. But my question is, though, if video games are basically getting bigger, well, not literally getting bigger, but in terms of the file size getting bigger, then is that just going to push more people just to go and buy out a physical copy?
I think so. I know that because with the Xbox, and obviously they'll rethink this with their new iteration, whatever the Xbox, it'll be like the Xbox 5000 or whatever the hell they call it.
What's it? Xbox One.
But like we had we're near a college, and the college near us doesn't have very good internet, and it was actually a foreign exchange student. He was a Japanese guy, and he bought an Xbox One for some reason. I can't imagine why, but he bought an Xbox One, and because it detected his internet, it kept saying, hey, you got to update, hey, you got to install. And this guy, I actually brought the Xbox back to my house because my internet's better, and it took me 2 days to fully install and update all of his games. And yeah, and so
wow.
there's people out there who are like, and there's still people that come in and they're like, they'll want to buy a game like The Division. I'm like, oh, hey, just so you know, it's an online only game. And they're like, oh, it is? I don't have internet. I'm like, okay. So there's a lot of people that still don't have internet. So I think there's always going to be a market for people who want, and especially based on size of how long everything takes to download, Thankfully, they have preloading, I guess, now, which, something Steam's been doing for years, but PlayStation and Xbox finally caught up to. But even with that, I mean, it takes forever. It takes forever to do that.
I mean, I think that another problem we also got is that there's no refund system on these consoles like Steam. So you buy a game and that's it. You can't like game share or anything. That's it. It's on there.
Yep.
Once, I'm just saying though, PlayStation are probably going to get refunds first because Xbox still think it's 2001.
So,
well, they're calling their console Xbox One, so they probably think it's still the early 2000s.
It could be worse. It could be the Switch app to download for Splatoon, where you have to matchmake and party up with people in an app in your phone. That has to.
I swear that's how you do voice chat.
It's voice chat, but it's also you have to have the app has to be open and on. So if you like minimize out of the app, it'll disconnect you. It has to be on the whole time. So it's just gonna kill your phone.
Oh my god! And it's gonna kill my.
What if you're on 1% battery and then you really got to get that charger and then your phone dies on you? Then what? You screw.
Yeah. And
oh my god!
And now look, I'm with Jordan a little bit. Like, I love the Switch. I think it's a great console, but for some reason,
here we go.
No, I think it's cool. I think it's cool, but here's the thing.
Yeah.
I think the Switch is a cool concept.
It's a cool console, yeah.
I've played on one, but I'm yet to get my hands on like.
At least to try something a little bit.
Yeah,
different.
exactly. And like I was kind of saying earlier, like I'm always seeking a different experience, and I love Nintendo's handheld games, but I hate playing on a handheld. So I'd never play the thing in handheld mode. I put that thing in a dock. I got the Pro controller, and I can play all those great games that like I always missed out on that were handhelds because I hate playing on a 2-inch screen or whatever the hell it is, But what I'll say is Nintendo always has really good ideas, and then they always screw something up. And this one is just I don't know what they're thinking. It's just bad. Well, just bad.
They've been doing it for 40 years, and they've been doing it for 40 years, but they still don't know how to market overseas properly.
It's like they still don't care. That's what's interesting about it. Like they.
Well, we brought up a good point. I think I can't remember what episode it was.
It was last week.
Or last week.
No, actually, no. It was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago.
Or 2 weeks ago, rather, when I literally asked Edward this question: when was the last time you saw a Nintendo advert?
And I said probably when the Wii U got announced. That was the last time I saw one on television.
How about, why don't you tell us, Greg? When was the last time you saw a Nintendo advert?
For any Nintendo product, Switch, Wii U, like GameCube.
Yeah, it could be on anything.
I think that's a really good point. I don't even remember the Wii U being marketed on TV. Like, although I don't remember the Wii getting marketed either. I don't. They just have never really done it.
No, they were really good at that. In their defense, they marketed the Wii to perfection in the UK and Europe. Like every time it went to ad, the first ad and the last ad when you were watching television was a different.
It was always the Wii.
It was
and the
always
thing is,
the Wii.
The Wii itself so much in the country. I don't remember anyone that actually did not have a Wii.
Well, isn't that it?
To be honest, pretty much almost.
It's so incredible too, because if you think about it, when you think of the console war of that generation, you go, man, PlayStation 3 just at the end of the life because of worldwide sales. In the US, it passed it right at the end, but in worldwide sales, PS3 crushed 360. So it's like, okay, the PS3 won. The Wii outsold both of them by a ton, but no one will ever look at that system and say it was the best console of that generation.
I don't know.
It's because the novelty of it wore off, and then everyone was like, everyone started playing old Nintendo stuff again because it's like, I want to play with a regular controller and not have the possibility of knocking someone out who sat in the same room as me while I'm playing Wii. Like, because it got to a point where I only used my Wii to play Smash Brothers Brawl because it was a game where I didn't have to flail my arm around. Because like Wii Sports, yeah, it's fun, but it gets tiresome after about half an hour.
It's gimmicky, it's cool for a minute, and then all of a sudden, yeah.
That was that's the problem I have with Nintendo. Even though I like the Switch, I just want them to make a normal console that doesn't have any gimmicks.
I guess the way I look at that is we kind of have that with the Xbox and PS4 right now, so I'm glad that Nintendo tries something different. I just wish that for once they could get it right on every aspect, instead of always getting it right like 75% of the way and then 25% of it they flub, Because the good thing about this, even when it's in portable mode, because I took it with me, I went to, back in April, I went to Japan, and... Yeah, it was incredible. And I took my Switch on the plane.
I want to go to Japan.
It's so amazing there.
Where did you go?
I stayed in Tokyo mostly, and then we went to Kyoto and Hiroshima.
Tokyo.
It was awesome.
Should have probably not said that.
If I go to Japan, I really want to visit the north because it looks really nice.
Yeah, I think if I went again, I'd want to go one more time to Tokyo because I need to spend a full week in Akiba. Like with the, I was there for like a day, and it wasn't even close to enough time. But
I really want to go to the section of Tokyo where all like the game stuff happens. Because
where the game stuff happens.
Yeah, it's Akihabara, or like they call it Akiba for short. But that was incredible. Like on a Sunday, they actually shut the streets down, and for like 5-block radius, it's just like a huge sidewalk sale of video games, manga, statues.
Wow,
it's incredible, man. It was.
Wait. Can I ask you this? When did you go to Japan?
I went middle of April. We were there for 2 weeks.
2 weeks, that's a good amount of
time.
Yep.
What's really crazy about Japan, I think, is just how advanced they are compared to literally every other country in the world. Unless you're talking about South Korea.
Right. It's interesting because they definitely put a focus on technology. Like that's just what they want to do. But it's a big city.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird. Like we didn't see any homeless people. Like if you went to New York City, you couldn't walk a block without seeing a couple probably. And so.
And if you went to London, unlike what the media tries to portray, you will see it.
I was in London. I was in London yesterday.
Obviously to see Blink 182.
Yeah, because I went to see Blink 182 at the O2 Arena yesterday in London, and they literally have to say on the underground over the intercoms, like, this underground station it's illegal for there to be beggars. If there are beggars down here, please report them so they can be sent out. And it's like, oh my god. That's how many people are homeless in London.
Wild. But that makes me bring up a good question. So you're obviously not from London, but you go there, so you've been there. So when I was there, like, is it just me or do they not ever have any trash bins anywhere? Like, there's no rubbish bins anywhere. Like,
no, I could.
Nope. In fact, to be honest, it's not just London. You get it in a lot of cities. To be honest, it's like, where's the bin?
I'm gonna be honest. I absolutely despise going to London. The only place I go in London is the O2 Arena.
Nice.
Like,
and that's basically when you basically don't have any choice.
When we stayed there, we stayed mostly in Worcester, is where we were for like a big chunk of the trip, and then we took a little break. We went to like Stratford upon Avon, check out like the Shakespeare. Yeah, man, it was great,
Stratford upon Avon.
But yeah, I just thought that was funny because like I was holding on to trash for so long, and I'm like, where's a bin, for Christ's sake? Like, where is this thing?
Yeah. Unfortunately, London's just not the place that some people try and make it out to be. To be honest.
Yeah, people tell you it's amazing and stuff. You'll go there,
it's
and
not,
you won't.
Because literally all they'll do is that they'll just show a picture of the London Eye and obviously Buckingham Palace, and that's it. They don't show
literally
the rest of London.
I got into the underground, and then I realised, oh no, I need to go to a different underground station that's across the road because that's where the Jubilee line is, so I can get to North Greenwich. There was a red light, so cars had to stop. I nearly got hit by 3 different cars because they just didn't want to stop.
Yeah.
I hate London so much.
Yeah. What did you think of London overall?
I was only there because we went to London. That's where we flew in, and then we went to Paris for a day and back, and then we stayed in London. So we were only there for like a day, but I was not impressed. We went to Piccadilly Square, and like that was kind of cool. But it was like Las Vegas at night. I don't know. It wasn't. It didn't do anything for me personally. But we actually found this little pub that was. It wasn't like a touristy thing, It was like a where locals would go, and it was dynamite, man. Like, I love I grew up in Wisconsin, which is a big fishing kind of area, and so like I had fish all the time. So going there, I got like fish and chips like every day, dude. Like I was just having every variety I could, and it was just all of it was great. I'd eaten that all day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was a good time though. It was a fun vacation. Japan's still my favorite place to go that I've ever gone though. It's just incredible. Like I miss it, man. Like the food and everything. Like we had a ramen shop that was like a block from our Airbnb, and it was just the most amazing food. And I just want to eat there again. Like I think about it all the time. It's so weird. I just think about it, but yeah, if you guys ever want to go, like it's just something that you got to figure it out sometime and go because it's just amazing, just incredible.
Oh no, I am planning to go. I think we were just planning to do some road trip or something in the future. Don't know how realistic that's going to be, but
I'm
I
gonna
really
have
want
to
to do that.
I'm gonna need a small
Well, and
fortune to do that.
I
Small
think we ended up
fortune, yeah.
spending.
Give me a
We were
loan.
there for like 2 weeks, so round trip plane and the Airbnb for 2 weeks was about $2,000, and we split that 4 ways. So it was surprisingly not that expensive to go if you
That's
Yeah,
affordable
yeah.
in a group.
Have you been to? Let me ask you this: have you been to South
I have
Korea?
not. The friends we went to Japan with went to South Korea and they loved it.
Yeah, because I think South Korea, in terms of gaming, is just on a completely
Well, and
different level.
they love Americans there too, and like everything's in English, more so than Tokyo even. Tokyo is a lot of English. It's not everything's English, but there's a lot enough to get around. But South Korea, they even almost pander more, and like people will come up to you and want to get their picture taken with you and stuff like that. So it's really weird. But one thing I do want to share with you guys, the last thing I'll talk about with Japan real quick, but the last thing I want to tell you guys about is, I don't know if you've seen it on social media because it's starting to blow up a little bit, but we went to something called Maricar, and I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's basically you put on Mario costumes and you drive go-karts on the streets of Tokyo at
Yes,
night.
I have seen that. That's amazing.
I-
Yeah,
It
I
is
have not seen
incredible.
this.
It was the coolest thing. One of the coolest things I've ever done in my whole life, like ever, and I will never forget it, man. It was just, man, it was cool. I just want to go back again.
Yeah, I just want to go there right now. Actually, I think us talking about that has actually raised an important question. Do you think gaming, in terms of what we see in South Korea and Japan, such as obviously walking down the street and then wanting to go into like some, I don't even know what you call it. What do you call those places where you just turn up and then you pay and then you just get your own PC and then play League of Legends in
I think
South Korea?
LAN arcades
cool.
or LAN cafes. That sound right?
I
PC.
thought they were just like
internet cafes. Yeah,
cafes.
Internet cafes, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you
I've heard- yeah.
see that in the future potentially coming to places like America or the UK or whatever? Because
I don't.
I don't think so. Yeah,
Well-
I don't know. That's a tough question because in the early 2000s, like there were PC LAN centers around here. Like those were a thing, and they were starting to grow, and like there were internet cafes and stuff. And nowadays with the games like League of Legends that's so popular, Overwatch, all you have to do is log into your Blizzard account from any PC and you can play it. So the idea is very reasonable. You can even go into Steam on your own Steam account and download a game and play. So like the infrastructure is there for it, but I don't think people, I don't know, I think computers are so affordable now that can run most things. People would rather just, because you know us, we're like most people nowadays seem to be so antisocial. Like no one wants to do social things. So
well, it's a very similar thing in South Korea, but it gets
Yeah,
the
and-
people in for the internet cafes. So I don't know whether maybe it's just because their way of life is just completely different to
Well,
us.
there
or
was one
something.
when because I used to run a raiding guild in World of Warcraft for many years, and one of my birthday parties, we had like, I invited all the guild members to my birthday party from all over the states, and we had like 30 people, and we went to one of those LAN cafes, and we actually all logged into World of Warcraft at this LAN cafe, and it was a really cool experience, but I would only do it for like a party or something. I would never have done it like on a Tuesday, have like the fiance and I'd be like, hey, you want to get something to eat and then stop at the LAN cafe? You know, like I would never do that. But
The thing is, I don't think it's going to take off here because that kind of thing is so popular in places like Korea and Japan. It's a lot more affordable for them to be able to do that on like a weekly basis. Go in somewhere, pay money, sit down at any random computer, and play
And
for a
also
couple
they've
hours.
got the internet as well. I mean, I was actually reading up about the cheapest package you can get in South Korea is 100 megabit download speeds, and that's the cheapest you can get in South Korea. 100 megabits. In this country, you're talking more 8
Yeah.
megabits. America, you're probably talking 512 kilobits.
when at my store they used to Time Warner and Charter, like they used to split up business. They used to split up like business and home. Business is like 3 times as expensive, and my download speed for a while was 8 down and 0.75 up. That's what they capped me
Oh
at.
my
And for my
God.
business, I didn't care. But thankfully, since they merged now with Charter, like they busted the doors wide open and they're like, hey, for free, we'll upgrade you to 70 down, 10 up. And I was like, okay.
Do you know what? Does fiber optic even exist in America?
Oh man, so that's a funny story. So yeah, it does in some big cities. But what happened was,
But it does not. In most
So like
places.
the government went to a bunch of these telecom companies and was like, hey, if you guys start putting down fiber lines, we'll pay you money. And so Verizon and all these companies were like, oh, that sounds like a great deal. So they started doing it, and then it was too expensive. So like, well, we ran out of money, and the government's like, well, we're not giving any more money. And so the companies were like, okay, well, it's not finished. And the sad part about that is that a part of that deal to install those lines was that those companies got exclusive rights to be the only like internet service providers in those areas. So not only did they not uphold their end of the bargain, now they're the only person in town, and they charge ridiculous prices for garbage speeds. It's the saddest thing. It's like so sad. And the internet essentially to me is a utility. Like we're getting to the point where it's like a water or power bill. It should just be something we need for everyday use. And unfortunately we're so boned over here with that, and I'm lucky here to have like 3 different competitors, so we can really easily switch between the two if we want to, but it's brutal for most people. They don't have a choice. It's awful.
Man, we really went off topic today. That was incredible.
Really?
I warned you guys.
Really something.
I never shut up, so that's on me.
I mean, Roundtable was all about debating topics, but we just basically talked about Japan, South Korea. Like, where does that fit in?
It's a big discussion. And
Well,
it was
yeah,
a fun
big
discussion.
discussion. Very,
I
very
will say,
fun.
so I'll wrap it up on a good Japan topic then. So on Akihabara, where they have there's a bunch of independent game stores there, and retro is starting to blow up in Japan like it was blowing up here over the last couple of years, and so there's a ton of stores there. There's probably just in Tokyo alone. I went to maybe 15 or 20 used game stores that seemed like they weren't corporate chains or anything like that. They looked like they were mom and pop shops. So, you know, at least in Japan, it's still big. So.
Well, I think that's gonna about wrap up this episode actually, because we've been going for over an hour.
I know I'm keeping
Over an hour,
I'm
yes.
keeping you guys up way too late. So.
It's not that late. It's about
only-
20.
It's only like
You're
20
listening
past
to
11 at night.
you're listening to Flashbang Gaming Podcast exclusively on YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, if that ever happens.
SoundCloud's dead, fam.
It is currently 11:19 p.m. BST time.
We're
I
not
think it
live,
is.
dude. What are you doing?
I don't even know. But yeah, this has been the Flashbang Gaming Podcast. My name is Joe.
I've been Edward, and we've been joined by Greg from the Have At You podcast. Where can they find your podcast?
So
Greg?
the Have At You podcast, you can hit us up on iTunes, of course, Podbean, Stitcher, kind of the big ones. And then I actually do a separate podcast, my fiance, called Game Talk Radio. And that you can also find on iTunes or on YouTube as well. So.
And
Okay.
can they follow you on
Yeah.
Twitter
So you can
anywhere?
follow me at Bros Insanity, BROSINSINATI, so whatever it is. Insanity, brothers Insanity, but Bros, not brothers, unfortunately. That was my original YouTube project I started with my brother years ago. But that's my Twitter handle. Or you can follow me at Game Trade Greg, and that's Greg with 2 G's at the end. And that's kind of like I behave and say nice things about everybody so that people who go to my store won't think I'm an animal. So.
Okay. Well,
It's good cover.
I'll tell you what, if I ever come to America, I know which store to go to.
Well, you guys be welcome anytime.
I mean, you probably won't recognise me, but, you know.
And you can follow me on Twitter at EdMcDougall99, and you can follow Joe where?
At Joe_LGC.
This has been the 7th installment of the Flashbang Gaming Podcast. Thank you once again for listening. If you want, you can hit that subscribe button on YouTube or iTunes. Do whatever you want. Share this around. See if anyone else wants to listen to us bore you for an hour. We'll see you guys next week with maybe another guest. I have no idea what's happening. And you may see us on the other side of the Have At You podcast, so they can get us on at any time.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Sometimes it's